Now, Shepherd became a bit of an icon, a mythological figure in our culture. He's ironically the poster child for anti-gay hate crimes. Now, it's ironic because while the mainstream media perpetuated the myth that Matthew Shepard was murdered as a result of homophobia during the commission of a gay hate crime, it's long been revealed that, in fact, Shepard was a young HIV-positive crystal meth addict who was in a homosexual relationship with two of his drug dealers. These fellow gay druggies brutally and tragically murdered him during a drug deal gone bad. They're both now serving life sentences for their crimes. And so here we are. A California Senate proposal for armed LGBT squads built upon the phantasmic foundation of the world's most famous anti-gay violence myth. In a nutshell, the guy's a wacko bird. On the other side of the coin, Oklahoma, they know how to raise people right. Oklahoma State Senator Joseph Silk has stirred up a hornet's nest because he introduced a bill, SB 440, in his home state that would ensure that business owners have the right to retain the right to serve whomever they please. If you're a baker and you don't wish to partake in a gay wedding, you don't need to. You won't be penalized. You can't lose your business over it. And trust me, people have been losing their businesses over these. Either the fines get too out of control, or the state just says you either do it or you close your doors. And most Christians would close their doors rather than be forced to acknowledge and participate in a sodomite marriage. I sure as hell would. So the New York Times carried the story of the bill. Silk actually said that homosexuals don't have a right to be served in every single store. And he started getting hundreds of angry emails and phone calls from LGBT activists all over the country. They're saying that he's sanctioning discrimination. A couple of them have been death threats. But what the New York Times failed to include in the article was the rest of Silk's comment. What he actually said is that homosexuals do not have the right to be served in every store, just as I do not believe that I or my family or anyone else have the right to be served in every private business. You don't have a right to be served in my business. Now, the law says private business cannot discriminate against blacks. It does not say that you have to serve homosexual weddings. You cannot refuse to serve Jews. Although, go into a Muslim store and try to buy pork, they'll throw you out. They seem to have a market on discrimination. But we covered a story a couple of months ago about a straight guy that called a dozen gay bakeries saying that he wanted a cake for a pro-traditional marriage celebration. He wanted the cake to say, one man and one woman, it's God's way, or words to that effect. Every single gay baker that he took it to turned him down. Every single one of them. You see, but this guy was just trying to prove a point. The gay activists don't do that. They find Christian businesses out of the Christian phone book. They call the Christian businesses that they know won't participate. And once they say no, the lawyers are called. They can't accept our beliefs. Every single gay baker had their beliefs, and they weren't going to bend them for a Christian. But the gay, and I don't blame them. Believe me, I support the gay bakers. I support the gay bakers' right to not do that. I'm being told by Veronica Coffin, my editor, my producer, the guy's name that made these calls, and she's absolutely right. I had forgotten that it was him. The guy that sat down and called these gay bakers was Waleed Shubat. And he was proving a point. He wasn't trying to sue the gay bakers to get them, to force them out of business. He was proving a point. Private businesses belong to a company, to a person, or to a family. Public corporations that belong to stockholders, that's a different thing. There are a different set of laws that pertain to public corporations. But when it's a family business or a privately owned business, that person has a right to market and to do business with whomever he or she wants to, as long as he or she are not breaking a law. And there is no law that says sodomite marriage has to be done. But this state senator stands up for Christians. He wants to make sure that Christians that stand up for their own beliefs, their religious beliefs, that they're not persecuted and forced out of business. And then he is threatened. The threats even targeted a private cabin rental business that he manages for his father. The bill is about protecting the private business owners' rights to make their own decisions for their business and ensure that their religious beliefs are protected. Business owners, he says, should not be forced to serve someone if it violates their beliefs. But the LGBT community, while they try to force us to be tolerant of them, they will not be tolerant of our desire to stand up for our beliefs. Silk says the LGBT activists have shown time and again that they want to persecute, trample on people's rights, and take people's businesses away if for any reason their behavior and choices are not agreed with. My family and I, like others before, are testimonies to their hate, intolerance, and forceful nature of this movement. The sad thing is, no one is attacking their behavior. They have a right to be gay. But if you disagree with them, they will do everything in their power to ruin your life. And it's happened over and over and over again. Next up. Good column this week by Alan Karuba. And when good columns come out, no matter who they're by, Veronica Coffin will find them, and she'll put them up on TomO'Halloran.com or Algaida.com or ToHellWithIslam.com, or, as this one was, on TheAttackOnReligion.com. This one here, we're talking about the fact that we take our liberties spelled out in the Bill of Rights for granted. And it's especially true for the freedom of religion. which the First Amendment protects the free exercise thereof, while at the same time prohibiting an establishment of religion to ensure that neither a state nor the federal government can stipulate a specific religion as the official one. Now, the earliest Americans that came here came to avoid persecution for their beliefs, and they created a nation in which tolerance of other faiths was an established virtue. All of the major religions in the world condemn homosexuality, and they prohibit same-sex marriage. While homosexuality has gained a measure of tolerance in America, many, if not most Americans, do not accept same-sex marriage as a right that can be found in the Constitution. In the March 9th issue of the National Review, one news item noted that the sheer brazenness of Obama's dissembling on gay marriage, which was confirmed by David Axelrod in his new book. This might even gall the most hard-bitten of cynics. Obama, Axelrod writes, and Axelrod was his, I believe, chief of staff for the first 4 years. He said Obama was actually in favor of same-sex marriage during the first presidential campaign, even as he publicly said that he only supported civil unions, not full marriages. But he could not admit as much for fear of losing black churchgoers. Thus, it was confirmed that the change candidate had fallen back on a sacred religious belief he claimed to be representing, in furtherance of a policy that he now openly describes as a civil right. There's a word for this sort of conduct, says Mr. Karuba, but it's not hope. Obama lied repeatedly to secure support for Obamacare. He passed it into law by Democratic Party votes. No Republicans voted for it. The so-called contraceptive mandate has created many problems for Christians and others that are pro-life. In a similar fashion, many people of faith oppose the same-sex marriage. For most Americans, there's no shift in their view of marriage as a sacred right exclusively between a man and a woman. One can read in the Old and New Testaments from start to finish and find no justification for same-sex marriage. From the earliest days, civilization throughout the world has never deemed sodomite marriage as lawful. But Americans are being told by its courts that the Constitution declares it so. The founders who wrote the Constitution would be astonished to learn this. As Mary Nussbaum wrote in the summer of 2009 in the edition of Dissent, government plays a key role in all three aspects of marriage. It confers and administers benefits. It seems at least to generate or to operate as an agent of recognition or the granting of dignity. And it forms alliances with religious bodies. The clergy are always among those entitled to perform legally binding marriages. Religions may refuse to marry people who are eligible for state marriage, and they also may agree to marry people who are ineligible for state marriage. But much of the officially sanctioned marrying currently done in the United States is done on religious premises by religious personnel. What they are solemnizing, however, is not just a religious ritual. It's also a public rite of passage, the entry into a privileged civic status. When the Defense of Marriage Act was debated, Senator Richard Byrd made the comment. He says, throughout the annals of human experience and dozens of civilizations and cultures of varying value systems, humanity has discovered that the permanent relationship between men and women is a keystone to the stability, strength, and health of human society.